Welcome back to Worldview. Well, last Friday night from the Basilica of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, we heard Habemus Papam. We have a Pope, and his name is Francis, after St. Francis of Assisi. Now, returning to discuss with us the big changes coming in the Catholic Church is the theologian, the Reverend Dr. Britt Minshall, who joins us live via Skype this time, as opposed to telephone, from Baltimore. Dr. Minshall, welcome back to Worldview.
Dennis and your listeners and watchers, God bless you. Thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. Now, there have been a lot of big changes in the Vatican this past weekend. The popular betting line was that Brazil, Ghana, or even the USA would see its first pope. But the conclave ended up picking the number 2 guy to Benedict from 8 years ago, and now we have a Jesuit as cardinals. Now, as a pope, excuse me. Now, I was educated by the Jesuits at BC and found most of the members of that order to be rather forward thinkers, as in you could agree to disagree without fear of burning in hell for eternity. They seem to want you to think for yourself. Now, you've been studying Pope Francis for quite some time. What's your view of this selection?
Well, let's go back just for a little bit and get a little bit of background on the Jesuits, because I find them very, very interesting. When they were first incorporated in Spain and Portugal back in the early 1700s, they were an order of educators, and they had 2 distinct areas of endeavor. One was the self, and one was the whole, that is the society. And they were a lot different than the other orders in that they weren't recluse, they weren't cloistered. They were out on the street all the time, educating, working with people, and they became known as the doers. So they kind of got into a lot of trouble right in the very beginning. But I'm sure many of your viewers saw the movie The Mission with Robert De Niro and Jeremy Irons. And I have to say, if you haven't seen it, you should really see that movie. I've shown it at every church where I've ever been a pastor. And what that does is it depicts the events from 1750 to 1778, where the dictator of Portugal, a Marquis Pombal, was trying to enslave the Amerindians in Portuguese territory, Brazil. And it was only the Jesuits that were standing between them. And they fought the papacy and the European monarchy that were trying to enslave the Amerindians right to the hilt. Unfortunately, they lost the battle, and as a result of that, they had incurred the ire of the papacy. Now, the interesting thing is the Pope at that time put out an encyclical that he was going to get rid of the Jesuits forever, and that was going to be the end of them. Do you know who the Pope was?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Benedict XIV. Isn't that very interesting? So it was the first Benedict, and now we have the second, so to speak. So anyway, so they did. They kicked the Jesuits out of Latin America and out of much of Europe. That Pope died. The next one came along, Clement, and he finished the job. And finally, on July 21st of 1773, the Jesuits were no more. They were all to be imprisoned or killed or whatever. Many escaped to Africa. And that was basically the end of the Jesuits, except in Russia. Catherine the Great decided the Jesuits were so great that she wouldn't touch them, and they were allowed to be there. But every place else, they were gone.
So how did they come to find their way to the United States as the Society of Jesus, SJ, and found so many learned institutions?
Well, what happened was, back in the late 1800s, Pope Pius V, he came along and he reinstated the Jesuits.
Okay.
But they've always had a huge interdiction against them. They were never to be allowed to be the Pope. For years, they weren't allowed to be a member of the Curia. There was nothing that they were accepted at doing. So it's just interesting that they did come back, and this is the first time they've been allowed to really participate in the international church.
Wow.
One last little bit of information, which is interesting. I think when Clement VIII got rid of the Jesuits, the order was read in Buenos Aires, where our guy, Francis. And that was back in 1773. So you see how this thing kind of keeps rolling? And I personally believe that the reason Benedict really wanted to have a Jesuit, because I have a feeling, there's no way I can almost get rid of it, that he didn't have something to say in the selection of the Pope. Because everybody's too shocked that this guy got it. And it's a major change.
Well, but he was also in the second place runner-up to Benedict 8 years ago.
He certainly was. He certainly was. Okay. Now, the other side of the coin, when we're looking to the future, and I want to say this, I am not being regressive. I really am rooting for Francis to really go for it, okay? I hope he turns out to be an Earl Warren, as Earl Warren was to Eisenhower. A real turn.
Earl Warren, for those watching, we just need to perhaps explain that Earl Warren was a Supreme Court justice. He actually was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and he was appointed by, I think it was Eisenhower, but it was a great disappointment to him because he was so progressive, and he started a very progressive Supreme Court, which of course has since gone the other direction. For those that are...
That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's clear
exactly.
that... Yeah. It's clear that Francis, though, is very much he's a traditionalist when it comes to theology. I mean, he's against gay marriage, contraception, toes the line with a lot of the Vatican's current positions. So one begins to wonder, how will he deal with, for example, the priest-child abuse crisis? Is this meet the new boss same as the old boss, or will there be some real change in the Vatican itself?
Well, understand that... after Vatican II broke down, John 23rd died, then John Paul came in, which had spent his entire life fighting populism. He called it communism, but he was just really violent almost against anything that talked about power from the bottom up, unions, whatever. So the Catholic Church, for the entire papacy of John Paul, was literally gutted, top to bottom. University professors and presidents were canned. Theologians were defrocked by the hundreds. All of the archbishops were replaced by those that were along John Paul's line, which always believed that of keeping the patron system. I'm going to Latin America now. The patron system was where the original Spanish people who took over the continent always kept the Metistas and the laborers and the Indians and the blacks down in favor of a real aristocracy sort of a situation. And the church has been, during this past 30 years, very close to all of those people that were in control. And the only archbishop, well, there was two bishops that got in trouble for bucking the system, and one was Father Aristide in Haiti, and the other was Oscar Romero in El Salvador, and he went and got himself killed. So all of the people for the last 20 years that have now become archbishops and are in power had to be very anti-populist, or they couldn't have stayed. If you said that you were a liberation theologian, you were done in the Catholic Church, believe me. So if this man has been an archbishop, and he survived that, he must have been very friendly to that. Now, what the Earl Warren thing comes in is, as Earl Warren turned against his entire group of people, that is to say the Eisenhower wealthy group of Americans, and he really allowed the civil rights bills to come up, or the civil rights movement to gel up in the United States. Eisenhower said that he wished he had died before he appointed Earl Warren. Now, is that our Francis? Has he been a good politician waiting for his chance, like Bishop Romero did back in El Salvador? That would be wonderful. I hope so, to get some kind of a balance between the liberation theology movement, that is people power up, people's interest up over the wealthy and powerful. That would be fabulous. Let's wait and see.
Well, one last question here before we have to call it a session here. There were whispers that when Francis was a young priest, he turned over dissident priests in the 1970s to the government, and many of them were disappeared. And other loyalists jumped to his defense, though, and say he saved their family. So what's real here, and can the church afford another scandal, even one that's 40 years old?
Well, again, Dennis, I guess your viewers, you too were in corporate life. So everyone knows that when you're a part of a corporate meme, and I don't care if it's a religion, an automobile company, a bank, whatever, you've got to be a lockstep person if you're going to try to make it to the top. That's why I kept getting kicked out of churches for 40 years. I mean, the thing is, you've got to cooperate with the hierarchy. You've got to sing the company song. So I imagine if he got to be archbishop, he had to do something to get there. Like you would do if you were in a regular church or an automobile company. You don't worry about the customers. You don't worry about the drivers. You don't worry about the members. You worry about the hierarchy, because that's how you stay. So let's hope that he's so strong that he, in fact, is St. Francis reincarnated, that, wow, he knocks everybody's socks off. And I hope he does.
Well, thank you for coming on the program again with such short notice. When the new pope was first announced, you were the first person I wanted to speak with about this.
Well, let's pray for him and ourselves.
Thank you. We've been speaking with the Reverend Dr. Britt Minshall. He's author of the Jesus Book, which you can order on Amazon.com in paperback and in e-format. I highly recommend it. Now, coming up next, Kendall Sheets, author of the Book of Mormon, Book of Lies, joins us to discuss a connection in his book to historical criticisms of the Catholic Church that Joseph Smith used for his visions, and even more about this new pope. You're watching Worldview with Denis Campbell. Stay right here.